from Evansville, Indiana. This is the Budweiser Thunder on the Ohio. Brought to you by Champion, makers of Copper Plus, America's best spark plug.
This is stop number 4 in the 1986 Unlimited Hydroplane racing season. We're in Evansville, Indiana, and that is the last stop before we hit the West Coast, Tri-Cities and Seattle. But now that we are well into the season, national points become ever so critical, and we have the man next to me who is the national point leader. By 600 points, Jim Kropfeld in the Miss Budweiser. James, it's getting tight now, isn't it?
It's getting tighter with all the problems we've had on the Budweiser turbine here. Gearbox is going bad and not finding the right propeller. Chip's kind of catching up with us a little bit.
That being Chip Hanauer. Now, you worked on the gearboxes, the crew, over the past couple of days. Is everything taken care of?
It seems fine. I went out twice this morning, and I thrashed it pretty hard, and I couldn't hurt anything, so I think they did a perfect job.
Well, your old buddy, Jack Schaefer, just qualified, I believe, in the Freedom Festival. Jim Henrik is down there now. Let's see what happened.
The story here, Don Poyer, is at the last minute. I mean the last minute. The U-15 Miss Liberty with Jack Schaefer qualified right on the nose of 105. 3 attempts. You came back in. They said a 104.5. I heard you say, let go of the lines. I'm going for it again.
Well, you didn't see the whip they had in their hand. I figured I didn't want to come back unqualified, so we went out back out and drove it hard. These guys have worked their rear ends off.
Oh, you had Cooper and of course, Grammer here. Listen, this guy was teary-eyed when you made it.
Yeah, you're right about that. Who wouldn't be?
Okay, happy news from the Miss Liberty Camp. Now let's take a look at Heat 1A. And the rundown is the old boy Alberta with George Johnson, who likewise qualified just before race time this morning, 107.271. The Risley's Express with Todd Yarling out of Madison, likewise 107.946. The Budweiser with Jim Kropfeld at 115.2. And the Miller American with Chip Hanauer at 132.4. And that's the way they stack up for Heat 1A. Now, Don, how about Heat 1B?
All right, Jim, let's take a look at Heat 1B in Thunder on the Ohio 8. And as we said just a few minutes ago, the Freedom Festival with Jack Schaefer qualified at 105.4. Next, the Holset Miss Madison with one of the best drivers around, Ron Snyder, qualifying at 111.7. The U2, Joe Ritchie Spirit of America, Tom Deeth out of Detroit, qualifying at 116.4. Ran very well this morning, by the way. And the top qualifier in Heat 1B, the Miss 711, running very well with driver Steve Reynolds at 130.3 miles per hour. Our 8-boat field is set. Thunder on the Ohio is ready to begin. And we'll have Heat 1A for you right after this commercial timeout. Welcome back to Evansville. This is Jim Kropfeld getting into the Budweiser turbine. He is the national point leader by a slim 600-point margin. George Johnson and the Oboy Alberto out of Seattle. A little trouble getting that stock Allison with the turbocharger going. And, of course, Chip Hanauer, a winner of 2 straight this year and his 5th straight Gold Cup. George Johnson out of Seattle, as I said, will be running in Heat 1A in the Oboy Alberto. Todd Yarling, about 3 hours away from home. He lives in Indiana and drives the Risley Express. Jim Kropfeld, the Miss Budweiser. And he will be meeting his old foe, Chip Hanauer, in the Miller American in Heat 1A. And already it looks like the Oboy Alberta was in trouble. In fact, George Johnson may have blown a turbo. In the meantime, here come the 2 turbines coming down for the start. A legal start, nowhere near the starting buoy. The Miller American in lane number 2 and the Budweiser on the inside with Jim Kropfeld. This is a 2-mile course, a slight dogleg coming down the main straightaway. You see the boats turn right about there as they head into the first turn on the west end of the course. Miller American, slight lead coming into the first turn, but good positioning on the part of the Budweiser. The drivers like this course very much. You see the Budweiser now moving up. Pretty good water here today, fairly calm. It was very choppy yesterday. Look at Kropfeld. This is George Johnson still running, but I think he has blown a turbo. He'll try to get points if at all possible. But in the meantime, it is the Budweiser in first place, flying down the straightaway. Look at the Miller moving up, though, as they go into that turn. Now let's see how these two pros, these two veterans, handle that turn as they come around. I can't believe how much better this Budweiser boat is handling since Detroit and earlier in the year. Look at this shot. The two turbines, two veterans coming down the main straightaway. In the foreground is the Risley's Express with Todd Yarling. Lap speed for the Budweiser, 130.0 miles per hour, 127 plus for the Miller American. The Budweiser with Kropfeld. He really hasn't defeated Chip Hanauer yet head-to-head when these two boats are at their best, but right now he is getting the better of his old friend Chip Hanauer and the Miller American down the back chute. About a rooster tail lead for the Budweiser turbine. Bud Griffin is not here for this race. He was sent back to Seattle. But in the meantime, the big brother, Jim Kropfeld, and the Budweiser turbine doing just fine. And keep in mind, every heat is oh so important in the national points race now as we get almost midway through the 1986 season. He has a 600-point lead over the Miller American. Here they come around the second turn, the east turn here on the Ohio River on this 2-mile course. Bernie Little, he's got a 600-point lead in the national points race and could pick up another 100 points in his margin here to make it 700 with a victory in Heat 1A. The Bud Turbine, right behind him, Chip Hanauer and the Miller American, winner of this 5th straight Gold Cup here in 1986 and a winner in Madison just a week ago, about 3 miles upriver from here. Beautiful shot of the Budweiser coming in now. That first turn, a little choppy. If either turn will be choppy at all, it'll be this one, especially later on in the day. Two turbines out in front. Speed on that second lap for the Budweiser, 130.2 miles per hour, 125 for the Miller American. A lot of air getting under the Miller, and he seems to be settling down and willing to take second place at this stage anyway. They go 5 laps, a normal format of 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, and then the final, unlike the experimental format we saw in Madison last week, where they ran only 3 laps, but had 3 flights of preliminary heats before the final. The Budweiser looking absolutely gorgeous as it goes by the Risley's Express, Todd Yarling aboard. They've had turbocharge problems, but hope to get enough points to get into the final and go for the money. Here comes the Budweiser turbine in first place. Jim Kropfeld out of Cincinnati, Ohio, trying to get another 400 for the Budweiser. Ron Brown watching his boat go by. Chip Hanauer holding on to lane number 1, but he is in second place here in Heat 1A of the Thunder on the Ohio 8. The Risley's Express and Todd Yarling. Risley's a longtime sponsor for hydroplane racing here in southern Indiana. This boat, as we said earlier, running so much better now, getting a lot more air under it and much more stable and not so responsive when it hits those bigger waves like it did in Detroit. Kropfeld, one of the masters at turning these big thunderboats. Here comes Chip Hanauer. You're almost riding with him as you hear the sound of that Lycoming L7 turbine engine. The Budweiser in first place in Heat 1A. Kropfeld, a member of the APBA Hall of Champions many times over, as is Chip Hanauer, the man right behind him, as they go down the back chute. The back straightaway here on the Ohio is simply a straight line, but as they come around the turn, they look at that dog leg to the left, coming down the main straightaway. Gorgeous shot of the Budweiser, coming around the second turn and heading down in front of better than 70,000 fans. Just going into the turn, as you see, is the Miller American, and the checkered flag awaits Jim Kropfeld and the Budweiser turbine. 400 points to the Bud in Heat 1A. Bernie Little happy to see that as he defeats Chip Hanauer and the Miller American. Second place to the Miller. And third place to Risley's Express. With an amazing average speed of 128.7 miles per hour, the Budweiser getting the victory. Miller American right up there too at 126. Very fast heat. Risley's Express getting 225 points in the Oboy Alberto, failing to finish. Down to the Budweiser camp with Jim Hendrick.
First time that you've gone head-to-head with Chip Hanauer, and this time you beat him.
Well, that's why we're here, to go out and beat. You know, the Budweiser guys, they worked all night on that gearbox, and we had a lot of problems over the weekend, and at Detroit also, but They did a fantastic job, and we're out here, and that's the way I love to go, head-to-head.
Bernie Little was yelling at you all the way around, but you can't hear him.
Yeah, he heard me all the way.
Down at the Miller camp, we understand the boat is suffering from some handling problems. We'll talk about that later on. Back in a minute. Heat 1B is next on tap. This is Steve Reynolds in the 7-Eleven. Ron Snyder and the wholesome Miss Madison. The Joe Ritchie Spirit of Detroit with Tom DeEath. Make that the Joe Ritchie Spirit of America. They changed the name. And the 7-Eleven heading out with Steve Reynolds, the second fastest qualifier. Now let's look at the drivers' faces as we go in for another preliminary heat with 4 drivers. Jack Schaefer Jr., the man who qualified just before racing started today. Ron Snyder, one of the best starting drivers around. When it comes to the start, he's always there. Tom DeEath and the Joe Ritchie Spirit of America. And finally, out of Seattle, Steve Reynolds and the Turbine Miss 7-Eleven. All 4 boats are running for Heat 1B. As they come down, you can hear the countdown. Jerry Verhill, the crew chief of the 7-Eleven. His driver, Steve Reynolds, on the outside. Ron Snyder on the inside in the wholesome Miss Madison as they go into that first turn. The slight dog leg to the left on this 2-mile course here on the Ohio River. The Evansville Thunder on the Ohio, one of the greatest places in the country to race. And you see Snyder with great position, keeping the 7-Eleven on his outside hip as they go into the turn. Reynolds with a turbine engine. Steve Woomer, the owner of that boat, watching his driver, Steve Reynolds, now coming into the turn. A beautifully handling boat. Very, very good turning boat with a big air scoop on top. That was added in Detroit after discovering the engine needed more air while racing down in Miami. Coming down on lap number 1, the 7-Eleven in the lead, and the speed 124 miles per hour for the 7-Eleven. Good race for second and third. Joe Ritchie, Spirit of America, in second place, and Snyder on the outside. But the leader right now, the man out of Seattle, Washington, looking for his first victory. Oh, you can hear it. That's a compressor stall of the turbine engine, which means the engine either needs more air, more fuel. Something is wrong. But in the meantime, Reynolds holds on to first place. Jack Schaefer Jr., the man who qualified earlier today, back to the 7-Eleven in the lead in the opposite turn of Schaefer and the Miss Freedoms Festival. This is Reynolds. Again, that scoop was added in Detroit, and they've even cut away more of the fiberglass inside to force more air into that Lycoming engine. Snyder, third place in the wholesome Miss Madison. First place, the 7-Eleven. The boat with brand new sponsons. They've had engine problems in the past, and they are today, it sounds like, even though he is maintaining a pretty good speed of 122 miles per hour. A Berlin piston engine powers the Joe Ritchie Spirit of America, and an Allison turbocharged engine, as you saw in Ron Snyder's wholesome Miss Madison. Coming down the main straightaway again, here on the Ohio, Steve Reynolds. Hear the whine of the propeller. That's the propeller going in and out of the water. You can even hear the water hitting the sponsons because the engine is so quiet. A rough ride, as you saw, for Jack Schaefer Jr. Anytime you're sitting behind the engine back near the transom, it is 3 times as rough as it might be in a cab-over design boat. Now watch Snyder here. Watch his head bouncing back and forth. Can you imagine the rough ride he is going through as he goes into a turn? He doesn't have seat belts either like this man. Steve Reynolds in a cab-over design and the enclosed cockpit, an F-16 canopy over him, plus a 5-point belt safety system that keeps him into the seat. Steve Reynolds heading down the straightaway for the last time. Second place for this man, Tom DeEath and the Joe Ritchie, but first place goes to Steve Reynolds in the 7-Eleven. 400 points to the turbine boat, and 300 to the Joe Ritchie Spirit of America, Tom DeEath. Third place, Snyder and the wholesome Miss Madison. Here are the results, and we have just gotten word from the tower that the Joe Ritchie was disqualified. So the wholesome Miss Madison gets 300 points and the Freedom Festival 225. We'll talk about that in a moment, but first let's talk to the winner of the heat, Steve Reynolds.
Looks like the boat is running a lot better than last week.
We've still got some minor engine problems. You know, the thing is still compressor stalling a little bit, and I still think that I'm down about 15 miles an hour on the top end, but kind of hard to find fault with the wind, isn't it?
In regards to the disqualification, The Joe Ritchie, the boat on the left inside the circle, was charged for moving from lane 2 into lane number 1, cutting off Jack Schaefer. Right there, you see the boat on the far right going up into the air just a bit. As a result, the Joe Ritchie lost all 300 points in Heat 1B. Let's get official word from Chief Referee Mike Noonan.
The call was made from our helicopter who was watching the lanes coming down for the start. At the dog leg, at the start-finish line buoy, the U2 made a lane change from lane 2 into lane 1. At the dog leg, the boat U15 was on his inside in lane 1 and was chopped with less than 5 boat length overlap.
Okay. That was at the start of the race?
That was at the start of the race, that's correct.
I think it's wrong.
Okay, we've talked to Mike Noonan. What's your opinion of it?
Well, they threw me out. That's all there is to it. And I'll guarantee this is going to be my say la vie to this whole sport. I'm gone. I mean, I've had it with all this crap.
Tom's boat is scheduled for the next heat. We'll see if he comes back in a moment. Another story developing in the pits. Grizzlies Express have discovered their turbochargers are damaged, and they're trying to buy time, maybe rebuild one for the final.
We're going to go out there and try to stay alive, see what happens. You know how boat racing is. Anything can happen. You never give up.
Now, in the meantime, you've got the crew trying to make another turbo?
Yeah, we've got a couple of them here that we've made up and just run out of time.
Well, I hope you need it for the final.
Me too.
Hey, we're happy to see Tom DeHeath has decided to come back after considering withdrawal, but he will be driving the Joe Ritchie Spirit of America. And let's hear from one of the biggest hydroplane fans in the business.
When your hometown boat is running in hot competition.
I get very nervous and excited.
Carol Hughes, heavily involved with this team. Ron Snyder, the driver of the Hulset Miss Madison. And right now he is setting his starting clock for Heat 2A.
2-1, mark.
He's ready to go. Crew wiring in his radio system now as Jim Kropfeld gets into the Budweiser turbine. And Ron Snyder out of Piqua, Ohio is ready to head out for Heat 2A. The rundown as follows. The Bud Turbine, the Hulset Miss Madison Grizzlies Express, and the Joe Ritchie still seeking points today. You hear the countdown. Here comes the Joe Ritchie. Oh, a great start by Tom DeHeath ahead of the Budweiser and the rest of the field. The Merlin engine-powered Joe Ritchie Spirit of America with Tom DeHeath driving like a possessed man, going into that first turn ahead of the Budweiser. Budweiser got washed down by the rooster tail of that boat. He's still running. Jim Kropfeld. Here comes Snyder on the inside. Let's see if Kropfeld can hold on to second place. That's the battle for 2 and 3. First place belongs to this man out of Detroit, Tom DeHeath, rocking and rolling over some of those swells in the second turn and now coming down the main straightaway. Tom DeHeath driving beautifully ahead of this man, Jim Kropfeld, and the Budweiser. Third place, Ron Snyder, the Hulset Miss Madison. And fourth place, Todd Yarling and the Grizzlies Express. Bernie Little, Steve Woomer, owner of the Budweiser and 7-Eleven respectively. This is the first place boat, Joe Ritchie Spirit of America, based out of Detroit. That being Joe Ritchie, the boat is taken care of in Seattle. The driver from Detroit, Tom DeHeath, the crew chief and the crew leader being Jim Harvey out of Seattle. You see the rest of the boats. Here is Grizzlies coming into that second turn. Checked out the first turn where it's rather choppy now as our day goes on. And you can hear those turbos laboring along, trying to keep it going and maybe get enough points to go into the final. Again, into the second turn, it is Tom DeHeath. This used to be the Atlas. You remember that, of course, when Chip Hanover drove it. He won his first Gold Cup in this boat back in 1982. Second place, the Budweiser, already with 400 points. Look out! The Hulset Miss Madison is hooked and thrown Ron Snyder into the water. He is moving. You can see him waving his arms. The boat has gone dead. Of course, the race has been stopped. The face screen has been ripped completely off the helmet of Ron Snyder. The boat is slowing down. That's the Grizzlies Express going by. You see the rescue divers going in to assist Snyder. Ron began racing back in 1976. Very popular. It looks like DeHeath doesn't know that the race has been stopped, driving the Joe Ritchie. And now there's his arm going up into the air. All right, he didn't get word. But the red flag was out and the race has been stopped. Charlie Grooms on the left, the crew chief. For Ron Snyder, obviously doesn't know the condition. His driver is in. The crew can only wait as the rescue drivers bring Ron Snyder back to the docks and will, of course, send him to the hospital immediately. Ron used to talk often about someday maybe that proud lady may throw him into the water. And that is exactly what has happened. Keith Peterson, the chief medical officer on the far right on his knees, will be administering all the care for Ron until he gets to the hospital. We don't know what condition Ron is in, and we hope to get a report to you right away. We'll return in just a moment. Back in Evansville, still no word on the condition of driver Ron Snyder. Maybe we can get a word from Bob Hughes, the team spokesman.
Bob, what's exactly the preliminary?
Well, they really don't know anything yet. He was talking, and he was complaining about needing some air pretty bad, so I think they was going to get him oxygen as soon as they got him inside there. I noticed his right eye was swollen pretty bad, so I'm sure he got beat up pretty bad coming out. They was trying to put a neck brace on him.
The crew down in the pits looking at the skid fin and the brackets for the skid fin. A lot of the weight of the boat was riding on that when it whipped around to the right side. Looking for any damage. A little bit here to the vertical stabilizers holding the wing, and the cockpit looking for any damage. At better than 100 miles per hour, imagine the forces, if you will, going against Snyder as the right Sponson comes along and catches the wake of the Miss Budweiser, whipping the boat around to the right and throwing Snyder into the air. The parachute opening, but working against Ron as it wraps around his body, and he goes into the water. We have an update on his condition now from Doug Ford, the pit referee.
On one eye and on the side and some on the body from impact. He's talking, he seems normal, all vitals good, and he's going to X-ray now. I think he's fine. Breathing okay then? Breathing okay. He'll be a sore dude tomorrow, I'm sure, but I think he's okay now. Okay?
So it's time to go racing again. We will restart Heat 2A, this time with 3 boats. Now that we've gotten the good news about Ron Snyder that he'll be all right. There are your 3 for the restart of 2A. With all 3 boats running now, you can hear them count down the boats in the official tower. And the Budweiser right on the button. Jim Cropfeld with a great start of the Budweiser and inside position on the Joe Ritchie Spirit of America. Past the dogleg, and here they come, rumbling into the first turn as they did in the earlier heat. This time, though, Cropfeld on the inside and better position, more acceleration, clear water in front of him with the Joe Ritchie on his outside hip. Cropfeld with 13 career victories. Tom DeEath in second place with 4 career victories. Right behind the Budweiser, this boat just keeps getting better and better. We all saw how it rocked and rolled in Detroit, a little bit in Miami, but it has really settled down here on the Ohio River in the Evansville race. Thunder on the Ohio 8, our 8th straight year of racing in this southern Indiana city. Jim Cropfeld out of Cincinnati, holding on to first place with an excellent start after getting snookered a bit by Tom DeEath, who got a great start in the first running of E2A, but of course, new life and a second chance for Cropfeld and company. Third place to Todd Yarling and the Risley's Express. And it seems to be running a little bit better now after it struggled in that earlier heat. They have problems with their turbochargers on that Allison engine. It is a turbocharged Allison with a carburetor rather than fuel injection. This, of course, the Lycoving turbine engine with better than 2,600 horsepower. And it's getting choppy down into that first turn. This, of course, a Merlin engine. Rolls-Royce Merlin to be exact. Tom DeEath, he's driven them all. 2 years ago, he drove the Light All-Star, which was a turbine-driven boat. And now he's back in the Pistons for crew chief Jim Harvey, who is also the team manager for owner Bob Stile. Third place again, Todd Yarling. The owner of the boat, Jim Sinam, out of Madison, Indiana. The Budweiser in first place. Good, clear, good, smooth water right now for the Bud as it handles well coming around. The Bud crew on the trailer. Steve Jones on the right works in the gearboxes for this team. Again, the Joe Ritchie Spirit of America. The Budweiser's gone through a number of gearboxes. In fact, they have used a couple of 7-Eleven gearboxes borrowed from team owner Steve Woomer. Part of the better than 70,000 fans here in Evansville for this race on a very warm day, but rather mild by their standards. Only about 88 degrees, and look at the Budweiser getting a lot of air underneath But again, normally this boat would have been even livelier. Look how it settles down after getting air under it and is still performing very well for Jim Kropfeld. Second place, again, the Joe Ritchie Spirit of Detroit. Third place, Todd Yarlick, Risley's Express. Back to the Budweiser, going down the back straightaway and around the second turn, coming down the dogleg main straightaway. And he is performing very, very well. He got 400 points in his first heat of the day. And in fact, we've just gotten word on his second lap today, a time or speed of 131, a new course record for a competition lap. He has the record and he has 400 points for Heat 2A, the Bud Turbine and Jim Kropfeld. Second place goes to the Joe Ritchie Spirit of America and Tom Deeth out of Fairhaven, Michigan. So the Budweiser is 2 for 2, a perfect 800 points in 2 heats. The Joe Ritchie finally getting some points today, and the day goes on for Risley's Express. Let's go down to the Budweiser camp.
Course record, lap record so far, 2 straight victories, going well.
Well, it's running very good. I guess this is the first time I really liked everything perfectly about the Budweiser turbine. It's just a fantastic piece of equipment. Now we just keep refining it, and I learn how to drive it a little better each time.
The late Bill Munsey, the all-time winningest driver, once compared hydroplane racing with ballet. And in a way, you can see why. That is some kind of dance. We'll return to Evansville, Indiana, right after this timeout. What a day it has been here in Evansville. We've had controversy involving Tom Deeth. We've had an injury with one driver, Ron Snyder, but we're told he's going to be all right. Time for the final preliminary heat of the day. This is the Miller American turbine, which will go out to face the 7-Eleven turbine, which is owned by Steve Woomer. Miller losing to the Budweiser earlier. Here's Woomer on the left in the 7-Eleven crew. Only 3 boats running now. The Oboy Alberto unable to start the engine, so we'll have 2 turbines and a piston engine for Heat 2B. And the Miller American right on the button. Where's the 7-Eleven? Here comes the Miss Freedom Festival with Jack Schaefer Jr. There's the 7-Eleven with Steve Reynolds. More power problems for that super sleek boat. And the crew has got to be discouraged because they know when it is healthy, very, very few boats can even match it, let alone beat it. In the meantime, Chip Hanauer, a winner of 5 races last year, won his 5th straight Gold Cup in Detroit this year, won 2 overall in 1986. He is in first place going into the first turn on the Ohio River. Second place right now belonging to Jack Schaefer and the Miss Freedom Festival, the boat renamed at the beginning of the day right after it qualified. Steve Reynolds giving chase. You can hear the compressor stall. Jerry Verhill, the crew chief for the 7-Eleven. I know he's discouraged as he talks with Steve Reynolds, the driver, over the 2-way radio. Here comes Reynolds moving back into second place in the 7-Eleven down the back chute. The straight back chute with a dog leg down the main straightaway where Chip Hanauer is headed right now in the beautiful Miller American. Hanauer moving right along. As a matter of fact, his lap speed right now at 130 miles per hour for lap number 1. The 7-Eleven moving into second place at about 99 miles per hour. That's an average for the lap. Of course, he was very slow earlier on. And in third place, Jack Schaefer Jr. out of California, driving Ed Cooper's Miss Freedom Festival. The Miller American was beaten earlier in Heat 1A against the Budweiser and Jim Kropfeld, the boat performing beautifully. Hanauer did not like the setup of the boat. They have changed it, and now he is moving along quite well, thank you. Second place, 7-Eleven and Steve Reynolds. And again, that familiar sound of an engine that needs either more air, more fuel. The turbine engine, and this, the boat built by Chuck Tickling. We'll talk about that more as the heat continues. Again, Chip Hanauer coming around the east turn. And this is a tremendous lap. We've got to get a time on him as he hugs the buoys coming down the main straightaway again. Again, the 7-Eleven in second place. But Hanauer is screaming. Here we go. We've got an official time. You might have heard it on the PA. 131.723. That is a new competition lap record here in Evansville on this 2-mile course. 131.723 miles per hour. A new competition lap record. Jim Crotfeld set the record just 1 heat ago, and here comes the Miller American topping that already. So I would say that Hanauer is quite happy with the setup of this boat, running the fastest lap in competition that has ever taken place here in Evansville in over 8 years of racing. This boat, built by Chuck Hickling out of Seattle, meticulous boat, built in the backyard of Hickling in Seattle. Doesn't believe in sponsors, just likes to race. Took his sweet time putting it together, and it is beautiful. The Miller American coming down the main straightaway again. Hanauer, that low profile of the boat. And again, the 7-Eleven with that big scoop up behind the driver, Steve Reynolds, hoping to suck more air, ram it into that Lycoming L7 turbine engine with 2,650 horsepower. But right now, he's not getting that kind of horsepower as he's struggling along, hoping to get at least second place points. With second place points, he should get into the final without any trouble after picking up 400 earlier in the day. The Miller American and Hanauer hoping to get his third victory of the year. And Jack Schaefer, who has driven for Chuck Hickling, as well as now the new owner of this boat, Ed Cooper. It's got a stock Allison in it. No turbocharged, no supercharged system. Strictly a stock Allison, but he's doing just fine. Qualified earlier in the day and might even get into the final. The 7-Eleven again coming down in front of better than 70,000 Indiana fans. People coming down from Cincinnati, Louisville, and the rest of the state of Indiana, even Indianapolis. As you see the Miller American rolling along in that first turn here on the 2-mile course. Reynolds simply taking it easy now in the 7-Eleven, trying to get the points and hopefully get an engine change and then go for it in the final. Jack Schaefer getting 3 times a rougher ride, sitting in the behind the engine rather than up front on a cab over design, much like the Miller American here. Getting bounced around as Hanauer, but you see how well this boat recovers. And that is one of the keys to this Lazaro design and built boat. It recovers so quickly. And now Hanauer coming down the straightaway here in Evansville. The checkered flag awaiting. Another 400 points for Chip Hanauer. He's in the final and will meet the other turbines. Second place to the 7-Eleven. He has 1 more lap to go, but he will pick up second place points. So here are the results after the final preliminary. Miller American 700 for the day. Likewise for the 7-Eleven, both getting first and second so far. And the Freedom Festival has made the final. Down to the pits.
Chip, a new lap record. Seems as though your problems of earlier have been corrected.
Well, we're getting there. You know, we knew we really had a bad setup in that first heat, and we had to make some drastic changes to get the boat ride better, and I think it's improved.
This might be the toughest competition of the year coming up.
Yeah, I think we've got a really good boat race coming.
Chip Hanauer with the win. Don?
Jim will set the stage for the final here in Evansville right after this. A number of ingredients go into a successful boat race, and one of those ingredients is entertainment between the boat races. This is Bill Warren and the Daring Damsels. Yes, those are 2 women wing walkers, the only 2 in the country that we know of, and they always put on a great show. And meanwhile, back in the pits, 7-Eleven putting in a new engine. Let's talk to 3 of the turbine drivers. Steve, some engine problems in 2B. You don't have one of your hotter engines now. What about it for the final?
Well, this is not our bullet, but it's not our worst engine either. We're still chasing the fuel starvation problem and the over-temp problem. I'm really not sure where it is. I don't know that we know. We're just going to take a systematic approach to it like we have at the beginning of the year. You track one thing down at a time, and then we're going to continue to do that process. The engine that we've got in there is a good engine, and I guarantee you that this team will get everything there is to be had from it.
Jim, I think in '86, this may be the first time you've gone after Chip with darn equal equipment.
Well, I'd say we're pretty equal. You know, I broke the record with my heat, and he went out and broke that by about a half a mile an hour. So it's going to come down to good driving and getting a good start. And, you know, I really think that you're going to see the record broken again in the final.
The guys down the beach and Crotfeld and them, they're going to run real strong. And, we've got to have our act together. Chip's got to make a good start and get us to the first turn with the boys.
Are we going to see you and, of course, Jim out in the infield again dodging around, or where would you like to be?
I think it's going to be kind of a messy 1-minute gun. I think both boats are running so close. I think we're both going to be trying for the inside, but maybe not. Maybe we got something else we want to try.
We have the potential for a fantastic final. So while Bill Warren and the Daring Damsels entertain the crowd here, we'll take this time out of our own. Back in a minute. We return to Evansville, and it has come down to this. The top 6 boats will compete in the final for the Budweiser Thunder on the Ohio. And looking at the drivers, Jim Kropfeld, a perfect day so far. 2 first-place finishes in preliminary heats. Chip Hanauer, a first and a second, and would love to win his 3rd race of 1986. Steve Reynolds looking for his first victory of 1986 in the Miss 711. Also in this final, Jack Schaefer Jr. What a story he has been today. Just qualifying in time to race and then making the final. Todd Yarling and the Risley's Express. They've made it. Finally, Tom Deeth of the Joe Ritchie Spirit of America. Everybody's out on the course. 6 boats ready to go for the start of the final here on Thunder on the Ohio 8 in Evansville, Indiana. Here come the boats. Tom Deeth, the Joe Ritchie way out in front. A legal start, an incredible start by Eath. Coming into the first turn, the Joe Ritchie Spirit of Detroit, the big red boat in first place. The Turbans, all 3 of them behind him. Budweiser in second place. Looks like the 711 is in third in lane number 1. Coming out of the first turn, going down the back chute. Good water for Tom Deeth. The piston-powered boat, the Merlin engine ahead of the 3 turbines. What a surprise and a great start on the part of Tom Deeth. Hitting the nitrous button, coming around the turns, trying to kick out of the turn and come down the main straightaway. Who would have believed it after 1 lap? A piston-powered boat running away from 3 turbine-powered boats. Budweiser second. Risley's Express back in 5th place right now. And in 6th is the Freedom Festival with Jack Schaefer Jr. Lap speed on lap number 1, 125 miles per hour. There's the 4th place boat, the Miller American. But in the meantime, a dogfight between the top 3 boats right now. Tom Deeth in first, holding off Jim Kropfeld on the outside. Deeth doing a great job of using all the course. Again, back to Todd Yarling in 5th place, and the Risley's Express doing a good job of getting into the final. Jack Schaefer, likewise, he barely qualified to get into racing at all today. There is the lead for the Joe Ritchie Spirit of America. Tom Deeth again trying to use all the course, coming in tight on the turns and then swinging wide on the straightaway, making Jim Kropfeld go the long way around to try to pass him or to drop back far enough so he can get behind the rooster tail. You quickly saw the 711 in lane number 1, but he has been unable to move up, that being Steve Reynolds. Lap speed after lap number 2, 120 miles per hour for the Joe Ritchie Spirit of Detroit. 4th place is the Miller American. 3rd place, 711. 2nd place, the Budweiser. 1st place, that boat, the Joe Ritchie Spirit of America. A sensational start by Tom Deeth is what's done it so far. They're on lap number 3, coming out now down the back chute. Again, it's the Joe Ritchie. There's the Budweiser peeking out behind the rooster tail. Kropfeld chipping away at that lead by Tom Deeth. Down the back chute. Again, the nitrous being poured into that engine, that Merlin engine, to get the extra boost, the nitrous oxide to get him out of the turns and down the straightaway. Again, into the turn, hugging the buoys. Tom Deeth driving the daylights out of this hydroplane. There's the lead. You see all 4 boats. The 711 in lane 1. Lane 3 is the Budweiser. And again, after 3 laps, it is the Joe Ritchie Spirit of Detroit. They're on lap number 4. The Budweiser moving up on the outside as they go into a very, very choppy first turn now here on the Ohio River. There's the Budweiser. Oh, look at the water that Kropfeld's running into. Now they got traffic. Jack Schaefer in that conventional boat doing a little blocking, and look at Tom Deeth able to squirt through and hold on to first place. Tom Deeth fighting off the turbines with a Merlin engine-powered boat, and here comes Kropfeld on the outside. Look at these 2 veterans going at it head-to-head around the second turn. We're on lap 4. 3rd place, the 711 with Steve Reynolds. down the main straightaway again, but Tom Dees holding on, but here comes Cropfeld. 1 lap to go. The Budweiser crew waiting for their driver to make a move. This is one of the best finals I've seen in a decade. On the inside is the Joe Ritchie. The outside, Cropfeld trying to hold on to first place, giving a lot of room to Tom DeHeath as he comes around, keeping the speed up around that first turn. This is lap number 5. His speeds on lap number 4, 122 miles per hour. The Joe Ritchie at 116, the 711 at 118. So they're all moving up. And of course, the Budweiser has taken over first. In the meantime, Steve Reynolds is chipping away at the Joe Ritchie as well. But here comes your leader and apparent winner of the Budweiser Thunder on the Ohio. Jim Cropfeld takes first place. And first place for Bernie Little, the Budweiser. Second place going to Tom DeHeath and a sensational performance for the Joe Ritchie. Third place, 711. Fourth place, the Miller American. Here are the final numbers. The Budweiser getting the victory, a perfect day, 3 victories. The Joe Ritchie Spirit of America, the 711, a great effort on the part of Steve Reynolds using a backup engine. The Miller American, off day for Chip Hanauer, and Risley's Express and the Freedom Festival. Down to the Budweiser camp and the celebration. Jimmy, come on over here. Come on over here.
Oh, shit.
Congrats. That's all right, Bernie. You got another pair, believe me. That may have been the greatest race, and now it's raining Budweiser. That may have been one of the greatest races fans have seen since they were kids. Jim, what a come-from-behind win.
I tell you what, that Budweiser team, they worked their tail off all weekend. Ever since we started the season, I complained that I didn't like the way the boat handled. They finally said, we're going to give you something you like, and you better go out and win, and that's what we did.
Was the key patience? I mean, you stayed on his outside hip and waited, and finally you got up there?
Yeah, I didn't think he was going to be that hard to get around. I tell you what, that Spirit of America runs, but... you know, I could see that I was getting about 5 or 6 boat lengths every lap, and I thought, well, I'll keep picking off, and then we went around someone up here, I don't know who it was, and I said, ha-ha, got you now.
Bernie, I think that's 55 for you, too, this year.
Oh, I even forgot. All I can tell you is that Cropfeld did a great job with the Miss Budweiser, and if he's as tired as I am, we're both wiped out. I felt that I drove it, but wasn't that some good boat racing? That's probably the best they've ever seen at Evansville.
Absolutely.
Really.
All right, we'll return to Evansville in just a minute.
What a way to go.
Oh, yeah, enjoy. Do it again. Welcome back to Evansville. Here are the national high point standings. The Budweiser Turbine broadening its lead over the Miller American. It was 600 points. Now it's over 900 points. On down the line, the Bud Griffin, the 711, the Holson Miss Madison, and you can see the rest of the boats. It's still a close race in 1986. Well, a final comment. We're all wrapped up here in Evansville. Jim Cropfeld getting his second win in 86. Any last remarks to everybody at home?
Well, it's great to win here in Evansville, and I'm sure glad to get off with number 13 on the 14.
Career wins, that being. Jim, final comment.
Well, I'll tell you what. He won the first race of the year. He sandwiches a couple of Miller American victories around the Budweiser victory here today. That trophy's good looking. It'll fit in your trophy shelf.
And I think we can safely say that was some of the finest racing we have seen as hydroplane fans in over a decade. From Evansville, for Jim Hendrick, Jim Cropfeld, the winner today, I'm Don Poyer. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Air travel has been provided by Continental Airlines, the official carriers of the Unlimited Racing Commission. Shoes and sports apparel have been provided for all URC officials by Avia, the high-performance athletic footwear for both men and women. This has been Budweiser's Thunder on the Ohio, brought to you by ANCO, the best wiper blade you can buy. Tests prove it.